Welcome to the Fuzzy Mike, the interview series, the podcast, whatever Kevin wants to call it. It's Fuzzy Mike.
Hello, and thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fuzzy Mike. This is the first of a two-part conversation with my guest, Ricky Sluder, a life and relationship coach and author of the book, Accepting Truth, Finding Hope. Ricky offers a faith-based alternative to the traditional mental health counseling model, and he uses his own enormously incredible story of survival against all odds. Due to extreme childhood trauma, including abuse and murder and complex PTSD, and he got that by serving the great state of Texas as a criminal investigator and classically trained hostage negotiator for 10 years, Ricky was severely wounded by countless lies he had been told about himself. Now, these lies, when he heard them and believed them, led him to form improper belief systems about himself and life in general. These lies were an attack on his very identity, which led to negative behaviors and actions like addiction, constant negative self-talk, and secret sexual acts. All of this led to feelings of sadness, depression, hopelessness, and even thoughts of suicide. And since I'm going through my own thought process right now, that's where we begin the conversation with Ricky. I don't think anything happens by coincidence. And I honestly think that you and I were meant to talk today. And I say that because lately, all I've been praying for is for God to take me.
Really?
Yeah. So I've been diagnosed as depression and chronic suicidal ideation. My dad was the fifth person in our family to kill himself, and
oh my God.
it's just a gene that runs in the family. And yeah, man, I've got a great life, but right now, I just don't care. And I think you're the guy that's going to get me through this.
Wow. Holy shit. That
Not
is
to put a lot of pressure on you.
No. I'll take that yoke. Okay. And let me tell you why. Because if you've done any digging on me, I felt that way so many times in my life that I can't see straight. Like I, I've had just a lot of shit, and I'd love to say I've had a good life. I haven't. I've had a terrible life, and I've had many friends who are like, if I believed in reincarnation, Ricky, I'd swear to God, you're Job 2.0. And I'm like, yeah, I think fucking so. Like, I mean, like, and so I've struggled so much. And just the other night, man, like, so back in, oh my God, my son's 3 now. I discovered after I thought I met my person, Kevin, that she was starving our son near to death. And the woman I married is a fucking monster that lied her ass off to me, financially ruined me. I fought like hell, got my son 50-50. That's all a guy's going to get. And she got away with it, you know? And then come up around to November of 23, I'm working for a toxic son of a bitch. And he just eliminated my position because he didn't like me. Didn't know he could do that. Yeah. So I've been trying to figure out a lot of shit in the last 7 months. And, it's like, why do we do this, Lord? Like, why do you take me down such difficult paths, like never endingly? Like, it's just never fucking ending. And I'll tell you, I'll take a step back. And whenever I was really reeling with this stuff and I was writing my book, and by the way, I didn't write that because I wanted to. I wrote that because God told me to. And I spent 5 years writing it. And I told him every morning when I woke up that I'd spend time with him. And if he didn't tell me what to write, I wasn't going to fucking write. And I'm not a churchy person. You can probably see that about me. But there is a God, and I've met him, and he's fucking cool. And I don't understand him. To save my life, I don't understand him. I know he loves me. But what I've come to understand recently, okay, during this season, because I came back to him and I went, really? Like, the fuck? Like, you've made me these promises that we weren't going to keep doing this shit, that like there's going to be sunshine at some point. Like, I can't just keep standing here in the rain, standing on the water, staring you in the eyes, Lord, and then to know that you're not even fucking standing there because you've just done your disappearing act, and I'm just supposed to be obediently standing here getting rained on and the waves beating the shit out of me, and I'm supposed to smile about it? Like, I can do that for about a day. After that, I get tired. My humanity begins to kick in, and I don't know what the fuck you want me to do, you know? And
Yeah.
so he had told me that he was putting me in this season where I'd kind of be like a baby in a womb, and I'd feel the most alone I've ever felt in my life. And yeah, he's true to his fucking word. And he just kind of like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, and go. And I shit you not, when I look back at my spreadsheet from the time that I lost my job to the time that on my spreadsheet I was gonna run out of money, okay, was exactly 40 weeks. You know what a gestation period is for a baby, don't you?
Yeah.
40 fucking weeks.
Yeah.
Like you can't make this shit up. And so I'm like, let's don't do that to me again. Come on. Like I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But what I've learned during this season, because I've had moments where I've been kind of solid, and I've had moments where I've been like, you know what? I just want to come home. Like I don't want to do this anymore. I've said that to him no less than probably 4,000 times in my life. Okay. And it's one of those genuine things where I know where you're coming from. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I understand the generational curse because my fucking family, you know, brought so much shit on me that I have no doubt just attached itself to me on my way out of the womb. And I have been working my ass off spiritually to figure out how to get rid of it so that I can just be free of all of that demonic oppression that previous generations brought into this family, you know? And I just had to make a commitment to myself, Kevin, where I said, you know what? I don't give a fuck what happens. You're going to knock me out of this fucking meat suit. I'm not doing it. And the reason for that is because I tried. I tried. That's why I did the dangerous shit I did in law enforcement. That's why I volunteered to be the first guy in the door.
Yeah, I knew that about you, that you were always wanting to be the first one in the door during your law enforcement days, because you were thinking about not only yourself, and you were thinking about your brethren that you were going into these dangerous situations with, and you were like, well, they've got kids and they've got
Right.
spouses that need to support, and you're like, you know what, my life was worthless, is basically
Yeah.
what you were saying.
Yeah. My life doesn't matter. I didn't think my life mattered. I know now that it does.
Oh yeah.
Imagine if the other night when I felt the way that you felt, the way you said that you've been feeling,
Hmm.
if I had just decided to check out, where would it have left you?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
And so I say that to say God has us all intertwined, and I agree. There are no fucking coincidences,
Yeah, I
you know.
completely agree. You said a lot there that we need to unravel,
Let's do
and
it.
what I want to unravel first is your upbringing. You were basically on your own since 9 years old.
Yeah, yeah. So at
How
four
does that
years old,
happen?
well, 4 years old, it's the earliest really I can kind of remember. We lived in East Texas, and my dad is a self-made guy. You know, he like quit school in the eighth grade, started a construction company, and he didn't have shit, like, and he just did the best he could. But he was broken and a mess of a man coming into his adult life. Ended up becoming pretty damn successful in spite of himself. Okay, not being educated, but a man in 1979 did, I think it was a private school or something, some kind of school project, where my dad took it on and he fronted everything, and the guy never paid him. $90,000 is what he lost on this venture, and he just left my dad high and dry with the bill, and the project never got completed, of course. And so, what does my dad do? Lost his ever loving mind because this guy just ruined me. And he was already angry. So he then becomes murderously angry. Like he just wants to kill this guy. Like find him, beat the shit out of him. And that's my dad. All my lineage, they're just mean, tough motherfuckers, like don't cross them. They'll hurt you. And so I that's not my spirit, Kevin. Like that's not who I was as a little boy. I was tender. I mean tender. And my dad didn't understand me because I wasn't, throwing whiskey bottles at people at 2 years old. I'd rather give you a hug. and a kiss and, sit in your lap and tell me a story, and nobody knew what to fucking do with me because I was weird. So he's got all that going on. And I say in my book that he had this hurricane forming off the coast of his life at that time, and everything was just coming unrooted. Well, the IRS, you pay your taxes or you don't, right?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't have the money to pay the taxes because he put it all into that project. And he wasn't about to fire the men who worked for him
Wow.
because they had families. And so he decided, you know what, the government will be just fine. These men won't. So I'll figure out the taxes later. Well, that was not during the kind and gentle IRS days. That was in the bend over, we have, a rocket sized microscope to come up into your tonsils with. And that's what they did. They came in, they seized everything we owned and basically told us, we don't give a shit. Sorry about your bad luck.
Man.
I was a little boy with a $50 savings account, man. They seized my savings account in the interest of the Republic. And then it made my dad pay like some ungodly amount of money. It was a $30,000 debt. He paid like 1,500 or more dollars a month for damn near 30 years. And then at the end of which is over $1 million that he paid back on a $30,000 debt, they then made him settle for the original amount and said, if you'll pay us what you originally owed us, we'll call it good. I tell you all that to say, okay, so when that happened, well, he was no longer he wasn't a very good human to begin with because he had so much shit he had never dealt with. Okay,
Mhm.
um, and so now he's just murderously angry all the time. You ask him a question, and God only knows what he'll do. There were days I'd come home, 8 years old, between 4 and 8, and literally walls will be missing inside of a house. Like I watched him tear a recliner in half with his bare hands one time. I still don't know how he did it.
Dang. That's some
That
rage, man.
much, that much rage, yeah. And so at 8 years old, ish, 8 was a bad year for me. I came home from a baseball game that I had played in, and I'm walking down the driveway, and I see something kind of shiny under my dad's truck. Well, it's my dad with a 44 to his head. And I ran in and told my mom, like, this is what I just saw. And of course, I go to my bedroom and bunker because I don't know what the fuck's about to happen
Uh,
because, shit went sideways a lot. And that night he had planned on murdering all of us and then killing himself. That was the plan. Now he didn't carry it through. I don't know why. But that's kind of the backdrop
we do know
for,
why. We do know why.
well, we do know why. You're right. God in
You're
his
supposed to be doing
providence
this.
God in his providence decided that that wasn't how that story was going to end. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so at the same time, I was molested by a relative.
Jeez Louise.
Then I literally woke up and I found pornography that same day. That led to a whole bunch of bad shit, as time went on. And then within days of that happening, I woke up one morning. I went from not ever having any allergies or anything to now being like deathly allergic to everything, just in a blink.
No
And it
kidding.
turns out, I think the trauma that I had experienced triggered a condition called eosinophilic esophagitis. And what happens is that you have these white blood cells called eosinophils that will form at your esophagus, and they attack your system because of food that I ended up with all kinds of food allergies and environmental allergies. So I ran a fever, not on top of everything else. I started running a fever between 100 to 106, no lie, every day for 8 years. Every day.
You had to feel
Eight.
like crap.
I was talking about miserable, man.
Yeah.
I was fucking miserable. So I'm terrified at home. I'm sick as shit. My mother doesn't know how to handle any of this. My dad's losing his mind. She doesn't know how to do it. She's got a sick kid that she didn't know what to do with either. She wasn't any more educated than he or any more healed, just as broken. And so her thing was, Ricky, just because you're a little bit sick doesn't mean the world's going to stop turning for you. She tried the tough love thing.
Uh,
And it was, you just got to figure it out, boy. So I learned to just do life with 103 fever, played
man.
football, did everything. And, it was, um, wore me out, Kevin, as you might imagine,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Rock
not
along.
only from a mental standpoint, but physically, you could not have been strong.
No, I wasn't. I broke 17 bones. I was malnourished. I didn't eat
Yeah.
what, I should have been eating, so we didn't have the money to eat. Once my dad left, we went from living on that, kind of rural farm kind of environment to now my mom had to get a job. She didn't work before. Now she's got two jobs trying to support us. So we moved into an apartment. And remember my mother telling me, when she told me that her and my dad were gonna get divorced, that we're moving into a two-bedroom apartment. Your sister's going to get a room because she's a girl. And then speaking first person from her,
Mhm.
I'll get a room because I'm the mom, and you'll sleep on the couch. Actually,
Jeez.
I said, "What about me?" is what I said, and she said, "You can sleep on the couch." Oh, oh,
How were your grades at this time? I mean, you can't concentrate on school doing this, can you?
straight A's.
Oh, did you pour yourself into school to escape?
No, no, I was just that lucky guy who I'm just always been smart. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh, I had one period. So after my dad left, he had one season where he came back. I was in the sixth grade. And that's the only time I ever got a bad grade. And I got a 69 in my math class. And it's because I didn't want him around. I couldn't concentrate. I was already a mess, but I was really a mess, right? With his reemergence. And he was doing the violent shit again. And I don't know, I just couldn't take it. And, I brought home, my report card with a 69 on it, and I'd always been a straight A student. And so what does he do? He tells me I'm grounded for 3 months. I can't leave my couch. And
Wow.
I'm like, well, that'll help. That'll make my grades go up. Thank you, you genius of a man.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was kind of the thing. And then I got into I got running around with a lot of wrong people.
This all happened to you at 9. Let's fast forward 5 years. At
Yeah.
14, major event.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because I was living in this apartment complex on the wrong side of the tracks, the kids that I was hanging around with now, they were just a different breed of kids than what I was hanging around with when I lived in the country. So I went from shy, um, timid, sweet kid to having to learn to fight every day. And I grew my hair down past my shoulders. And, I thought, well, when in Rome, better become a Roman, otherwise
Yeah.
you get your ass kicked. And I got lucky a couple of times in some pretty epic fights that, God just kind of smiled on me and I won in spite of the fact that I shouldn't have. And it kind of gave me a bit of a reputation with that group basically don't fuck with him. And
Uh-huh.
so it kind of put a hedge of protection around me in a way. But when that happens, then you start to kind of get a little bit of an ego, you know. And so then I'm hanging around, I'm going to street races, I'm drinking. I was probably clinically an alcoholic at 13. I drank so much, smoked a pack a day, but I was still an athlete. I was still a great student. I was just living this double life. It was so weird. But yeah, 14, my sister and I and some friends were drinking as we always were. We ran out of booze, so we needed to go to pawn shop. She was going to pawn her class ring, get us some more beer money. Smart things you do at 1 a.m.
Of course.
And so we're in the bad, bad, bad part of Dallas, and her and her boyfriend go in. I'm sitting on the hump of a little Mercury Lynx, is the Ford Escort, version, and so a little two-seater in the front, and then it's got like a row in the back that, if you put three humans in it, they'll fit as long as they're all hugging. So one of my buddies is back there, one of my sister's boyfriend's buddies is back there, and then some other guy that I still don't know who he was, but he was a little bit Looney Tune. And so they're crammed back there, and I'm sitting on the center console. My sister and her boyfriend go inside. They come out. Well, before they come out, I saw this car pull in, and I was very acquainted with the various Mexican gangs that were popular. And at that time, they wore their hair a certain way. They wore trench coats, and you just knew them if you knew,
Mhm.
if you know. And so I saw them pull in the parking lot and I went, oh shit, that's not gonna be good. Um, and so sure enough, when my sister and her boyfriend come out of the pawn shop, those guys ambushed them and knife fight begins. My sister ran to the car. She was trying to get inside. I try to help her, and one of the guys pulls her out, has a knife, to her. She's fighting because she's tough. And so she's trying to fight him off, and I'm trying to, get to where I can help her. And as I'm kind of coming out to go for her, a knife comes between my eyes, and this guy backs me up against the driver window, and he's pushing it into the flesh of my bridge of my nose. And since then, I have looked into the eyes of very evil men, but I have never seen what I saw in this man's eyes. It's an evil unparalleled. I don't really know how to describe it other than to say it shook me to my core
Wow.
when I saw his eyes and the literal death that just was swimming in his eyes. And he told me he was going to kill me. And there was no question that man was absolutely going to kill me. And I still don't really even know what I said. Okay. I can only say that I guess I channeled this inner hostage negotiator that God was going to allow me to be later on in life, because I talked this man out of killing me. And I could tell by the look on his face, he didn't really understand why he was backing down. But I had just, I don't know, befuddled him with some, magical soliloquy that I threw at him, and I bargained really with my letter jacket. I gave him my letter jacket
Oh, wow.
in exchange for my life, and
Good
I
deal.
guess he thought so because he backed out of the car, and then when he did, um, my sister's boyfriend had come around the other side of the car at that same time, and he's banging on the roof, and he's like giving me the machete. I didn't know there was a machete in the car. Well, the guy sitting in the back that I said is kind of the Looney Tunes guy, he picks it up and he's like, big knife. Like, what the fuck is my life? And so he hands the machete out the car, and so the guy then comes around and he decides he's going to attack my sister's boyfriend. And then he realizes, oh, he really does have a machete. That's a problem. So now they're running, and my sister's boyfriend stabbed him with it. It went through his back and out his chest. And I saw that guy go from moving to just like this and just face plant. Boom. And the machete popped out because it hit the
Yeah.
concrete.
Yeah.
Right. And so my sister's boyfriend kind of overran the guy because he didn't expect him to fall, I guess. I mean, everything's in real time, right? And so one of the other guys was in chase too. And it's like when the machete popped up, he like grabs it and swings it around and hits my sister's boyfriend right on the back. And I thought, he's decapitated. Like, this just went from bad to worse. But it ended up being the blunt side.
Okay.
It wasn't the sharp side. And so it did some damage, but it obviously didn't kill him. And right when that happened, a DPD cruiser pulled into the alley and just stopped. They picked their guy up and ran. And then, we just kind of hung out by the car. And then next thing you know, we got Air One, and you got all kinds of freaking police coming from all over the damn place. And of course, we all lied. But what are you going to do? You're not going to tell them what actually happened. That's just not the rules of the street.
Yeah.
So, so then my mom found out, and I wanted my letter jacket back. It was taken into evidence. The VPD found it there at the crime scene. And homicide detective called my mother the next day, Kevin, and said, I'm Detective so-and-so, homicide, DPD, have your son's this, your daughter's this, and whatnot. She gets off the phone, and I'm sitting there when she's having this conversation. I'm going, oh shit,
Right.
and she then looks at me and was like, what happened last night? And I just spun some BS yarn, and she never asked me another question. Never took me to get any of the evidence. Never took me to get my jacket. Never did anything. It was just like, matter over. Let's just move on. I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good thing. I can look back now as a father and go, oh my God.
Yeah, right.
Not a good thing.
So what happened with was there prosecution? Was there no,
I never
nothing, huh?
found. No, then when like I said, when the officer pulled in, those guys grabbed their guy
Yeah.
off the ground, one under each shoulder. I remember watching them pick him up and drug him around the backside of a dumpster. And then one of the guys got in the car, they got everybody in the car and they took off. And then they were stupid enough to come back. But when they came back, the one that wasn't with us wasn't with them.
Oh, yeah.
So all
Wow.
we had was blood on the ground. And what can you do with that?
Okay. So you've gone through this traumatic experience at 9 years of age. Now you've almost been killed and then seen the guy that was going to kill you get killed.
Yeah.
Did that lead you to law enforcement? Because there's so many different bad outcomes that could happen with that upbringing, but you actually turned it into a positive, I think.
Yeah, I did. And, I had always wanted to be a police officer. Like that was a passion of mine. Chips, was like the thing
Yeah.
in our era. So I was a little boy when my grandfather was trying to watch Gunsmoke, I was crying, telling him to put chips on TV. So I just had this like, idealistic fascination with it. I didn't really know anything about it. But what really led me down that road was that I knew I wanted to, after that happened, um, uh, it did something to me because I realized, okay, this isn't just fun and games anymore. Like this gangster lifestyle that, we sometimes think is cool and, the thug life or whatever you want to call it. Um, there's consequences for it and they're deadly. And I just lived it and I just survived it narrowly. And it wasn't the first time that had happened, sadly, but that event was the one that made me go, okay, I want to do more with my life, you know? And what I didn't share with you earlier is that at 8 years old, I had given my life to Christ. I don't know really why I did it. I've always known that God was there, and I've always equated God with Jesus. That's just what I thought at that age. And I went in my bedroom and I just prayed and said, I want you to be the God of my life. And I didn't grow up in church. I had an uncle who was a Baptist preacher, and I think I heard him preach on the rapture no less than 6 times. So I just thought God was really angry, you know,
Yeah.
and I really thought that he must hate me. And otherwise, why would I have the life that I have? Why would these things be happening to me? I couldn't see that it was for me at that time, right? It was to me. And so I just was train wreck. So I decide one day, all right, I may have been born playing white trash, but I'll be damned if I die it. Okay. So I went to my high school counselor. Isn't that where you're supposed to go when you don't
Yeah.
have anybody else to turn to? Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I said, hey, sir, can I talk to you? I want to go to college. I have colleges recruiting me for football. I have great grades. I have all this. Like, I want to go. I just don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know what to do. And he literally like looked me up and down. I could smell the cigarette smoke on me. And I got a greasy mullet, because I probably haven't washed my hair in 3 weeks. And and he's like, what are your grades? And so he started looking me up. Well, he didn't have a good defense on my grades. So he was like, have you taken chemistry yet? And I'm a junior at this point. And I was like, I dropped it actually. It kind of conflicted with something else I was doing, and I haven't picked it back up. And he's like, well, you can't get college admission in the state of Texas if you haven't taken chemistry. And I went, okay. I was like, so take chemistry, I guess. I don't know. Like, so, but how do I go to college? Like, I need your help. I have no one to talk to. My sister's the first person to graduate high school in my entire family ever. I'm a fifth generation Texan, like 1860. Been one. I'll be number two. Like, help me. And he goes, you're just really not college material, Ricky. I'm going to actually take you off of the current path you're on, and we're going to put you on this like work release program where you'll come to school half a day. You have a job, don't you? And I went, yeah, I have to. Like I work at a grocery store, stacking groceries and stuff. And he's like, okay, well then I'll give you more time to work, won't it?
Wow.
Yes, sir, it would. And I said, well, then what do I do? And he goes, well, I think you should probably think about automotive technician school.
This is your
And I went,
counselor telling you this.
yeah, yeah. And I went, why would I do that? I said, I don't know how to work on a car. Like, I have nobody teach me that shit. And and he goes, I just think that's really more your speed, son. And I went, and then I realized what he was doing. And I said, okay, sir. You know what? Thank you. Really appreciate your time. I'm going to get back to class. And so when I walked out of there, Kevin, walking down the hallway, I'm just shaking my little head because I'm in disbelief. I'm like, I couldn't catch a break if it was freaking contagious, you know? And I'm like, you know what? F him.
Hmm.
Screw that guy. Like, I'm going to college. So I went. Chemistry be damned. I got in. Not
Nice.
only did I get in, I worked full time. Southwest Texas State, baby. Now Texas State. We're alum.
Southwest, baby. Southwest.
Hell
Yep.
yeah. Had so much fun. I had a 1.8 that first semester. We won't talk about that. But I ended up graduating with honors. And I sat there at my graduation ceremony at Strahan Coliseum, which I know you're familiar with.
Yes, sir.
And I'm looking at my honors cord and I'm like, I'm going to find that MF and I'm going to choke the life out of him with these chords because I still had just a little bit of that redneck in me. And then I thought, no, 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 no. I haven't yet to begin. I'm going to go make something out of my life. And then I'm going to choke him with these damn chords. Trying to railroad me. You know, that son of a bitch.
But here's the thing, and you and I are also similar in this, okay? You took that, and you know, we always have choices, Ricky, and they're always
Mhm.
presented to us, you know, in the master plan.
Yeah,
And
agree.
the choices that you were given that day were, well, okay, I could just go to mechanic school and become an automotive technician, or I could prove this guy wrong. Well, that's what I did with my dad. My dad told me at 13, I'll never amount to anything. And okay, there's my choice. The bar is set low. I can amount to nothing, or I can say, no, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to cram it up your fucking ass and I'm going to be as successful as I can be.
Amen, bro.
And that's what ended up happening, you know?
Amen. Yeah.
And, but this kind of, I don't want to interrupt your backstory, but
No, no, no.
this kind of leads me to where you, and especially in your book, Accepting Truth, Finding Hope, can help a lot of people. As a radio broadcaster for 30 years, my dad only measured success by the numbers on your paycheck. How many are there and how much have you accumulated? And that became my motivation
Yeah.
for a long time. Okay. And that became my identity, this broadcaster. Okay. And one of the things that I struggle with now is being retired. What is my new purpose? Because I don't see it, Ricky.
You know, all my life, I thought, and I bet you did too, if I strive just hard enough, man, if I accomplish this, if I get those 2 commas in that paycheck, you know, then people are going to love me. They're going to have to say, I was wrong about Ricky. I was wrong about Kevin, right? I, and then they're going to say, no, that guy does have worth. There is purpose in him. And we were wrong. And they're all going to then throw a fucking party for us. And that never happens.
No, it doesn't.
You know, you may never get that affirmation that you really actually deserve and beyond deserve need from those people that you've been on that rat wheel striving for that acceptance from. And what I shared with this young man was that I said, okay, I know you've been hurt by people in your life. We've talked about that. And I'm trying to help you unpack those boxes. And I know that's difficult to understand. What is the box? What's in it? And how to get the shit out. I said, I understand that too. It took me forever to figure it out. So we're going to scratch the surface together before we ever do anything. I said, but the thing that I need you to understand is that as a man, if you run around with no smile on your face and everything you do is an emotional, passionate response, then all you are is a hothead because you are out of control. I said, now, you know what I did for a living. I said, I'm a trained killer. I know how to do really horrible things to people to get them to submit to my authority if I want them to. So I could probably win just about any damn argument. I said, but I don't do that. I said, you know why I don't do that? I said, because it's one word. It's one word called meek. Are you familiar with the word meek? Meek is not weak. You see, when you have bravado and you're out there puffing your chest and motherfucking people and punching people in the face, and I said that's weakness because that's your strength out of control. Whereas meekness, Jesus said, the meek will inherit the earth.
Yes, you did.
You see, God, in the form of man, let people spit in his face, beat the living shit out of him, and he never once hit them back. That's meek. That's not weak. He could have destroyed them with a thought. Instead, he loved them and gave them grace. And what I told this young man was, I said, you've got to live your life from a place of meekness. And if people want to yell at you and scream at you, don't adopt their emotions. You just sit there, wait till the pregnant pause, and then say, you know what? It seems like you're upset with me. And I'd love to have a constructive conversation, but I don't think it's going to happen with us yelling. So could we just take a moment to cool down? I'm going to go calm down myself. I said, you just excuse yourself. That's how you put boundaries up. And then you come back and say, hey, are you ready to finish this conversation? I'd love to resolve it. And I said, and your goal is always two-pronged. It's resolution, not about being right. I don't care who's right.
Mhm.
It's about resolving the conflict and then resuming the relationship. And if you go into conflict with those two things in mind, then you won't get caught up in who's right and who's wrong. And I want to win the argument and fuck you. It'll be about, I want to resolve the issue so that we can go back to being in this relationship together, whether it be friendship, whether it be romantic, whether it be child,
Business.
whatever it is,
Yeah, yeah,
business.
yeah.
But it's these things that I never learned, Kevin. No one taught me this shit. God is the one who taught me this shit. Okay. And it's why I know it's my job to teach it to others. But you see, I gave my dad and my mom a hall pass all those years to say, well, they never knew. They never did. No, they never fucking tried. And so I took my hall pass back and I said, it's unfortunate that you didn't take a stand for me and this family. But you know what? Come hell or high water, I am taking a stand for this family. And here are my new rules for engagement on how we're going to do relationship. And if you can't abide by them, then you're going to have to go. And unfortunately, that's what had to happen. I had to, they're not in my life anymore. And I had to mourn that. It wasn't what I wanted. But I can't let toxicity be in my world and then say that I have a healthy mental mindset.
Yeah, no, I've actually spoken to two guests on the Fuzzy Mike before.
No.
Akemia Deadweiler, who's written a book, and then a guy in Austin, Texas. He's a mindset coach, Bobby Sexton, and he said, and both of them have said exactly what you just said. It doesn't matter how close the relationship is supposed to be. If they're toxic people, you can't have them in your life.
No, they have to find healing. And if they're unwilling to do the hard work, well, then maybe they just need to not be in your orbit if you want to be healthy. Otherwise, they're going to just, you're going to have a trauma response constantly. And I knew I was going to have, and I already was having trauma responses. And
So
I thought, I
if
can't
you
do this
do
shit. Yeah.
that, you excommunicate these people from your life. How do you not look upon yourself as, hey man, maybe I'm being selfish?
That's a good question. And I'm going to answer it, I think, simply. And that is it selfish to know your worth? Is it selfish to ask someone else to value you because you know your worth? And is it selfish to say, I'm just asking that you not betray me? I'm just asking that you not treat me like shit, right?
Yeah.
Let's be authentic and real with one another in a healthy way. And if we can do that, Kevin, then we can be in relationship. But if you're unwilling, if you're just going to treat me like a surrogate bitch, and you're just going to try to put me in my place, and you're just going to tell me that I'm always wrong, and you're never going to take any accountability, we don't have a relationship anyway.
Yeah.
Who's being selfish in the equation?
How do we know our worth? How do we define our worth?
Man, that's a damn good question. So the way it happened for me, okay, was that I was about to embark on this thing called Quest. Quest is where I literally walked with Jesus for like 9 hours one day. And those of you who don't believe the way I believe, you can probably think this guy just lost me. He's crazy. I am crazy. I used to fucking go into doors where people had guns and I was smiling. But but I'm telling you, this shit happened, and it radically changed my life. Again, I didn't grow up in church, so why would he pick me to be the guy he wants to hang out with one Saturday? Fuck, I don't know, but he did, right? But before I went on that event, I was in my second marriage. My first marriage had fallen apart. I had 18 affairs that I know of, more than that, but that's what I counted. And I was just a train wreck, you know. And the second marriage, you know, the pendulum swung the other direction, and that was just a whole different type of train wreck. And I was grappling with so many things. I was making the best money I've ever had in my life. I had over $100,000 in my checking account. I thought that I had all the things that would make me happy, and I was miserable
Mhm.
because I couldn't answer one question. I didn't know who I was. You see, since God took that badge off my chest in 2009 and he took away my identity, I was left asking the question, who am I? But I was still striving for the acceptance of others. I was hanging on to an old identity because, well, I'm a former this and that, and I'm still a badass, right? Everybody affirmed that I'm still a badass. And I make a lot of money, so obviously I have security, and I've got a hot wife, and I got a great kid, and she's got two pretty cool kids. And so my purpose, obviously, is to keep fucking rocking this cool life that I've got. Oh my God, no. But see, that's where I was. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I go on this thing called Encounter, and it was the first time I had ever confessed every sin that I've ever done. I was just a powder keg. And I had this opportunity at this event to just walk into a room with men that I didn't know and go, I don't give a shit what y'all think about me, but I got to say some things before I lose it. And I just opened up the kimono and I thought, these men are going to kick me out of this house after I do my confession. They ain't seen a sinner like me. And man, I put it all out there and I just went, ooh, see how that shit goes. Second guy gets up there. It's like he read my script. Third guy, same. Fourth guy, same. 10 guys. Every one of them came up to me afterwards and said, thank you. Because had you not done that, there's no way in hell I'd have had the courage to do it.
Wow.
And I went, holy shit. Okay. Well, that's not going the way I thought it was going to go. Right. And so then I learned a few things during that time from the guy who was the kind of the senior pastor guy who was kind of leading the event. Well, we were staying at this house that I don't even know where I was even at, but some house that was hosting it. And the only place that was left when I got there for me to sleep was in a closet with a mattress on the floor and Christmas decorations all in this closet. And this closet was small, Kevin. I grew up this way. I slept on the fucking couch. I didn't have a bed. And I'm like, really? Like, this is what we're going to do? You know, I'm looking to heaven. So it's like, whatever. So we get done. I go up into my little room, my closet, close the door, my whole 200 square feet, I guess, that I had in there, you know, my mattress and a fucking Christmas tree that I wanted to throw out a window, but there wasn't one. And so it was like, I love Christmas, but I resent the shit out of it. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, I had my Bible, and I had started getting kind of this prophetic gifting, if you want to call it that, where I hear the voice of God. It's not out loud, I'm not crazy, but there's this second voice. It's thoughts that I'm not thinking. Okay. And I've finally figured out how to understand when it's him and when it's the enemy. And I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty good at discerning it. Well, on this night, I was not good at discerning it because I'm asking the Lord, I'm like, okay, give me a verse. Like, show me where to go in your word. Like, I want to know this stuff. Show me where to go. And I want to understand you better. Like, I'm fucking lost. And I would hear, you know, whatever the verse I heard, I would turn to it and it would be God's wrath from Old Testament stuff, you know, like where he's just annihilating somebody. And I'm like, see, I knew you fucking hated me. And then I'd say, okay, can we try another one? And then another one would be the same thing. And it was just over and over and over. I realize now that was not God. That was the enemy trying to do what? Discourage me.
Of course.
Right.
Knock you down.
So it did. It discouraged the shit out of me to the point that I'm sitting there and I finally say these words that had needed to be said at that point, probably for 37 years. Okay. And that was fuck, fuck. I don't know who I am, but I don't care about that. I want to know, who do you say I am? That's the question I asked the living God. And I'm sitting there, Kevin. I had my Bible on my knee because I'm squatted in this little position because I'm in this little big fucking space. And the Bible literally just flies off my knee. And I don't know how it happened. I didn't touch it. It just boop, just jumped off my knee, and all my papers went everywhere. Well, what I haven't shared with y'all, I'm a type A freak of fucking nature. Okay. I like everything organized. Well, I had everything in its place. I didn't know where it was at, but it was in its place. Okay. So I
Uh-huh.
started picking up my papers and I'm cussing a blue streak and I'm slamming them in the Bible. I'm gonna fucking, this and that. And I had this postcard that meant a lot to me. And I had it in a special place, but I didn't know what the special place was. But it was where it was supposed to be. And so it was no longer there. When I saw that, I just lost it. And I picked that postcard up. I randomly opened my Bible. I slammed that in there. I slammed it closed. I don't recommend this next thing, but I looked to heaven. I gave God the middle finger and I said, fuck you. I'm going to bed. And I woke up the next morning and I went, I would like to retract the fuck you.
Yes.
Um, and I'm sorry. I should not speak to you that way. I should not act that way. I don't know what's wrong with me, besides a lot. And I just want to start over. And so I picked my Bible up. I resumed my little squatted position and I opened it up and it opened to the postcard naturally because it was
Yeah.
the biggest thing in the book, right? And I start seeing things on the right side of the page that's talking about backsliding. It's in Psalms. And I was like, well, that's me. You're fucking talking to my dumb ass. I'm a backsliding piece of shit. And so I think that was the word that God had for me. No, no, it wasn't. Well, it was probably a year or more later. Okay, where I had now entered into a relationship where at 5 o'clock every morning I was spending time with God doing two-way journaling where I would talk to him and he would talk back and I'd write it all down. And some of it was so prophetic that when the shit happened, I about fell out of my fucking shoes. And other times where I was like, maybe that'll happen in 30 years. I don't know. And some of it was him rebuking me, telling me, quit being so hard on your daughter. You got to, lead with grace and just trying to help me become a man. He was being a dad to me. Okay.
Huh?
And I was getting to write it all down and do this with him. And one day I set up my bar in my kitchen and I didn't have my Bible, but I had my journal and I started a journal and I went very proud of myself. Like I remembered something. You never answered my question. And he goes, yes, I did. And I went, you don't even know what question I'm talking about because I haven't told you yet. And he was like, really? I'm God. And I went, you never answered my question. He said, yes, I did. And I went, no, you didn't. And he said, you know what your problem is? And I went, uh-oh.
Where to begin?
There's so many of those, Lord. And I went, what now? What problem? And he goes, you always begin at the end of things. You never begin at the beginning of things. And I went, you know what your problem is you talk to me in riddles and I don't understand this shit. And he went silent. He went quiet. And I went, oh, come on, don't do that to me. Like, come back. I'm sorry. And I went, so I just started dissecting that. What does that mean? Well, I remembered, okay, what was the question that I asked? I used my investigative brain and I began to reverse engineer everything. So we had to solve a case. So I came in here and grabbed my Bible and I was like, okay, when I asked that question, I was in that closet. And so I came in here, got my Bible, and it opened up right where that postcard was. And I was like, yep, that's where I put that son of a bitch. So end of things. What does that mean? Well, I immediately looked to the right-hand side of the page and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that backsliding stuff. That's right. I thought that was my word. That wasn't it, was it? Nope, because that's the end of things. That's the right side of the page. So what's the left side of the page? I looked and I literally with my finger at the bottom, all the way to the top. The top of the page in the Bible that I was looking at was Psalm 2:7. And the verse said, therefore, I declare the decree today, you are my son.
Aha.
Ask of me the nations, and I'll give them to you as an inheritance. I cried my fucking eyes out because my question was, who do you say I am to you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He said, you're my son.
Wow.
That's who you are. And I went, okay, I don't know what that means. I've never been a son. I've always wanted a dad, but I never really got to be one. So I don't know how to do this. And I was like, I don't know what, I was like, I think you got the wrong guy, man. Like, you keep telling me you want me to do these things, but I'm not equipped. I don't know. I don't know your word. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be that man. I say fuck too much. I like my whiskey strong and I like women a little too much. To keep my hands off of them in a biblical way. Um, and so I was like, I think you got the wrong guy. And he's like, no, I didn't. And he said, you're going to write a book, you're going to write movies, you're going to teach, and you're going to preach. And I'm like, you keep telling me that, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't even know what that means. And so Kevin, he then ended up giving me 4 words that led to the book. But it was, again, over another couple of years. Like, none of this stuff happened when I wanted it to. So I'll pause there. I said a lot of shit.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't happen the way that, or on the timeline that you want it to, because it ain't your timeline.
And this life is not about us.
What is it about?
It's about God.
Okay.
So a creator, think about this. You're a creator in your own right. You are creating a podcast, you're creating a show. You want to have something to offer to your audience that's going to do what? One, capture their attention, teach them something, give them something that they can then work from, right? The Bible describes God as a potter and that we are his clay.
Yeah.
So he is just molding a creation with us. And the whole point of that creation that he is creating, much like you as the podcaster, is to have a podcast that you are proud of and that you want people to see and hear and enjoy. And that's us for him.
Yeah.
Everything we do is for his glory, not for ours. And what we mistake is that when bad things are happening to us, this side of eternity, we think, well, he must be mad at me. Otherwise, he wouldn't do this to me. Well, see, he didn't
That's
see it.
always my first thought. And it's
Yeah.
always my first thought.
But see, that's not the way he sees it. You see, he tells us, my ways are not your ways. And you don't lean on your own understanding because you don't get me. So here's how God looks at it. He allows bad things to happen in our life to do what? To teach us. He's teaching us because he loves us. And some of us, myself specifically, are hard-headed. I learn only when it's really tough. I don't learn from success. I get a big fucking head.
Yeah.
But take everything away from me and watch me grow.
Yeah.
And so what God sees is that we are bitching, going, I don't know why you're doing this. I don't like this. This isn't fun. Da, 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 blah, blah, blah. You don't love me. Thought you were good. Why would you let this happen? And we're going down that talk track. And he looks at it and goes, well, bad things make you grow. That seems like that's good.
Very true.
Because your life isn't here for you to be comfortable and to be a billionaire. Your life is here so you can learn, you can grow, you can discover that God is the reason that you're here. You can enter into that relationship with him. Fuck the rules, guys. I don't give a shit about the rules, and nor does he. He thumbed his nose at them. Read all the red letter stuff and you'll figure that out. And then when you finally hit that stride where you have that relationship with him, you'll start to realize that all of the backdrop of our life is preparing us for the purpose. But if we don't allow those bad things to make us better, if we allow them to make us bitter, then guess what? You got some more bad shit coming until you figure out it's to make you better. So get off the bitter train, figure out that there is a God that is bigger than you. And if you don't believe me, you don't have to. But I just submit for consideration, go on YouTube and look up near-death experiences and start listening to stories of people who tell the same thing with 10 different faiths about what they encounter when they had their near-death experience. It's fucking fascinating.
Well, your story it proves that there is a higher power, a God. Okay. And like you just said, people don't necessarily have to believe what we believe, but because I know people who are atheists and I know people who are agnostic, but they still do believe that the universe has some sort of power, which I think that's awesome for them. Okay. But you have had, we haven't even talked about the biggest miracle in your life, but you've already talked about 2 miracles that happened in your life. The book just flies off and then you open it up and you start where the postcard is and you start reading on the left-hand side. That's a miracle. Before we get to the biggest miracle of your life and the one that just has my jaw dropping, I want to ask you, when you were in that group session and you opened up. What is it about telling our story? What is it about opening up that frees us?
Well, think about our solar system for a minute. How many rocks are out there?
Oh, shit.
Enough for each of us to have our own. Why are we all on one? Relationship. Why did God allow me to go through so much shit? He told me in one word. He finally answered that question for me. And you know what the word he told me was, Kevin?
Love?
Relatable.
Oh,
You see, I'm relatable. You're relatable. We all go through shit. And the point of it is that you and I need to be relatable because there's going to be a time when you're sitting in the mud and you're going to need a guy like me who's not afraid to sit in the mud because I've sat there before. And I can come right alongside you and go, "Hey, brother, I love you. I'm sorry you feel this way. And I'm sorry that shit sucks right now. And I'm not going to tell you, a bunch of pie in the sky bullshit. I'm just going to sit here in the mud with you. And if you want to talk about it, let's talk. And if you don't, well, let's just sit here and be muddy." So the fact that I was molested, I don't have it. Just recently, I started opening up about this. At 22, I was raped, sodomized by a guy who drugged me, and I woke up during that act. Um, I've been physically abused, verbally abused. There's not a whole lot of shit that hasn't happened to me. And God told me, I didn't do these to you, I did them for you, so you would be relatable, because I want you to go into the valley. The verse says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." And he said, the problem is, son, you camped out there. And so many people like you have camped out there. He said, but you're not afraid of the valley. The valley are your people. You see, you didn't want to do ministry because you didn't want to be a churchy guy. I don't want you being a churchy guy. I want you in the valley. Those people don't think I can love them. But you have a hard story to tell.
Yeah, you do.
And how does your story end? God loves me. He fucking loves me. I'm his boy. I'm his fucking boy.
Yeah.
And I get to go and sit in the mud with people, Kevin, and go, I'm sorry. I know what that means. And sometimes they'll be like, you don't understand. And I'm like, try me. Well, this happened to me. You won't believe it, but it fucking happened to me too. You know?
Yeah.
And when you have a camaraderie, when you have relatability, people then are more willing to listen to your Jesus story. But they're not willing to listen to a God who loves them from a person standing on a corner screaming at people that they're going to fucking hell if they don't repent. Give me a break. Jesus never did that. He did what? He got down in the mud with people.
Yeah.
And just said, do you want me to heal you? I'll meet you where you are. Think about it. It's fucking love, you know?
So my guest is Ricky Sluder. You can get Ricky's book, Accepting Truth, Finding Hope. But do you feel the pressure? Do you feel the weight of that responsibility?
No.
No.
And the only time I feel the weight of the responsibility is when I'm not doing it.
Okay.
You know when I get depressed is when I isolate.
Yeah.
You know when I feel sorry for myself is when I'm not in community. When I'm not doing this. This is my purpose. And if I never make a dime from it, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Book. Originally, I thought, yay, I'm going to be a best-selling author. I give them away now,
Yeah.
because I had to realize that I got to get my fucking ego out of the way. This isn't about me. This is about you and the other yous out there who are hurting, and you need someone to talk to. Well, fucking call me. Or, Ricky, I can't afford you. So call me anyway.
Oh, it's like the old Johnny Cash line, rich man is a pauper at times compared to the man with a satisfied mind.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
That seems like a really good place to stop this part of the conversation, because the next part of the conversation is a completely different direction. And we'll get that next week. You won't want to miss that one. Thank you for listening or watching. If you'd be so kind, please give the Fuzzy Mike a rating, comment, like, follow, or subscribe, and share the podcast with family, friends, heck, even enemies. To stay connected with the Fuzzy Mike, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or simply email me at thefuzzymike@gmail.com. The Fuzzy Mike is hosted and produced by Kevin Klein. Production elements by Zach Sheesh at the Radio Farm. Social media director is Trish Klein. Every Wednesday, we give you a brand new episode of the Tuttle and Klein podcast. We record those on Monday, so I have the benefit of already recording, and I know what this week sounds like. It is uproariously funny. Definitely don't want to miss that. Every Wednesday, the Tuttle and Klein podcast, brand new episode. Next Tuesday, right here on the Fuzzy Mike, we'll hear part 2 of our conversation with today's guest, Ricky Sluder. He shares the details of the biggest miracle to ever happen in his life. I know the story. It is riveting. You don't want to miss it. So grateful for you. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.
That's it for the Fuzzy Mike. Thank you. The Fuzzy Mike with Kevin Klein.
Fuzzy Mike.